Louise, this is what, 30 times the House has voted to rescind some part of the law?
Well, it depends on how you count it, but yes, we're somewhere in the early 30s for the number of votes that have been taken to repeal some or all of the health law in total since it was passed in March 2010. The question as to how voters feel about this is a really interesting one. What we've heard from House Republicans, we'd heard even before the Supreme Court had ruled on the law, was that they wanted to put folks on record one last time before they headed back to the districts for the campaign. Now, for them, they can focus the new vote around the idea that this has now been declared as a tax, and so there's some sort of new information out there. But either way, it seems very much geared towards November elections.
Now, in terms of the Senate's response to this, I'm guessing they will probably ignore what the House does.
Well, certainly, as far as Democrats in the Senate go, that's the case. And of course, the president has again said that he would veto any bill that passed through Congress. So either way, this isn't going anywhere. However, there is a question about what Senate Republicans do. They haven't really focused to the same extent on repeal as House Republicans have, of course, because they don't control their chamber. And what we'd heard from Democrats who do control the Senate is that they probably thought that if Republicans wanted to force through a repeal vote of their own, they would be able to do it under the rules that they have. Of course, it would not go anywhere because the majority of Democrats in the Senate wouldn't support it.
Let's take a step back, Louise, and just sort of talk about how this is playing out in America. Because on the one hand, you know, the Democrats have some risk because the health care law is still unpopular with a segment of the population out there. So having to stay in the news could be bad for them. On the other hand, isn't there just like a large contingency of people who are like, let's just move on? And if the Republicans keep dragging this out and forcing it to vote, aren't people saying you're ignoring bigger issues like the fact that my house is still in foreclosure and my husband still can't find a job?
That's certainly the focus of the messaging that we've heard from Democrats in recent days. They've argued, the president and other Democrats have argued, that this is political, that this is an attempt to refight all battles, that this is the GOP taking their focus off jobs and the economy, which should be their number one priority. And certainly the polling would indicate that they do have some basis for that. Again, when Democrats were successful in portraying the controversy over the contraception requirement in the health law as a war on women, in general, it seems as if they won that messaging war too. And so certainly they have a lot of reasons to be confident about where this is headed.
And in terms of that law, I mean, now you see Republicans are calling it a religious freedom tax. They're sort of trying to spin this in their favor. How's that going?
Well, that's another important point of the polling that's worth picking up on. When this is discussed in terms of its consumer provisions, voters generally feel good about Democrats and the law. When it's discussed in tax terms, they generally feel more supportive of Republicans and opposition to the law. And this was the case, again, before the Supreme Court ruled. And so if you look at those numbers, and certainly Republicans are looking at those numbers, there's no doubt that talking about it as a tax is something that they feel is going to reap them big benefits.